something like first there would be a short introduction of the speaker and the session would be handed over to Shruti ma'am. Later in the second half, the floor would be open to discussion. You can, all the participants can share their thoughts and questions there. So now I request the moderator to present the speaker bio. With over 2 decades of international human resources management experience across UK, US, and India, Shruti Swaroop brings a global perspective to her inclusions, interventions, coaching practices, and consulting engagements. As a certified coach, she works with the senior management and board of directors to bring about transformational and cultural change through programs on transformational coaching for leaders and coaching to improve performance. She has also mentored many senior professionals based out of 8 countries. Shruti has also been a part of IC committee at various organizations. Shruti is a TEDx speaker and a facilitator of behavior-based learning programs. Her coaching and inclusion framework, Embrace, which stands on the pillars of uniqueness, belongingness, and psychological safety, enable individuals and organizations to move to the next level of clarity and acceptance. This model has been published by Springer Nature in their book on diversity inclusion. Shruti runs Find Your Voice campaign, which focuses on creating awareness about emotional abuse and mental well-being. She also teaches HR and OB at various business schools. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. We are highly honored to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Am I audible?
yeah, ma'am, you're perfectly audible.
Thank you so much for having me here. A very, very good evening to everybody here. And a very happy International Women's Day to all the ladies, and to all the men for their support and for being male allies to this cause. So I think not just the women, but men also need to celebrate. So thank you for having me here. So I was asked to speak about my successes and about how we can take this forward. And the theme for this year is break the bias. So I thought, why not speak about breaking biases which are within us, breaking biases which are around us, and share some of my stories as well. So I have a deck and I'll get the deck over. But before I get the deck and I share it with all of you, I'd like to share a few stories about myself. So when I was growing up, I come from a defense background. If you've done a little bit of research, you'd get to know about that because it's out there on every platform. I come from a defense background and so have traveled extensively through the country, and then thereafter also traveled extensively through the world. Have been very, very honored, and I would say, I think, very lucky to have managed to travel over 38 countries and get to know different cultures, get to know women from different countries, get to know how people are, what makes them tick, what are the success stories, economies, cultures, etc. Now, when I was growing up, one of the things, and I'm the younger one in the house, so typically the younger ones are a little more confident of themselves, and obviously because of that, a little, as I say, rebel without a cause. I have two boys, and my younger one is a rebel without a cause. And I keep looking at him, and I'm like, this is like how I was and how difficult I must have made it for my parents. But jokes apart, so I remember being told as I was growing up that, you know, you will find it very difficult to teach. You don't have patience. You need to be a little more patient. You will not be a great teacher. You will not be able to do speaking opportunities because one really needs to have the confidence and the patience to speak to a crowd. And I have believed that I did not have it in me for, I think, almost 37, 38 years of my life. I actually grew up with the belief that I am an extremely impatient person who does not have the ability to teach. And I'm not saying I'm patient today. So don't mistake that. I think if you ask my mom, she'll possibly still say that Shruti is pretty impatient and she can't make it happen. But what was very interesting was, and the reason I'm bringing this story up is that stories that people around us tell us, the adjectives that people use for us, the boxing that is done, actually defines us for a very, very long time in our lives. And with that is also the boxing that we tell ourselves. So it's not just what the world is telling us, it is also what we are telling ourselves. I was very thin when I was growing up, and both my parents are pretty thin. However, in a typical Indian environment, when you're very thin, you're constantly told that it's not going to be healthy, you have to gain weight. And so I grew up again believing that it's not healthy to be thin and it's perfectly normal to be on the heavier side, which a lot of people are not able to identify with when I tell them that. I'm sure my mom won't be very happy with me sharing this on this platform. She'll be like, you're all this seems to be about telling what it's about, cribbing about her. But no, it's not that. What I'm trying to tell you is um, these are adjectives that you're not, I'm not just talking about parents. These are adjectives that could be used by your teachers, the environment we are in, the world that sees us in the first 8, 10 years, and the adjectives they use live with us through our years. And thereafter, what is it that we tell ourselves also defines who we are. And so, keeping that in mind, I'm going to today talk about how I have managed to break some of these limiting beliefs that were there in me, how I have managed to today teach at some of the best B schools in the country and outside the country as well. I have now done speaking opportunities in front of 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people, and broken my own belief that I cannot do this. So I'm going to quickly share my slide here. While I'm doing that, I want you all to extensively use the chat feature. So if you have any questions, if you have anything that you'd like to share, by all means, please do that. I'll be more than happy to answer at the end of the session. And one of the things I want you all to do while I'm pulling this up is actually to also think about the adjectives you're using for yourself on any given day. If I ask you all to define yourself in 10 words, how are you going to define yourself? And it's important that you know that. Typically, when I started my career 20 or 21 years back, we would find, one of the standard questions in interviews used to be name 5 strengths and tell us something which are your areas of development. Over the years, those questions have stopped. But one thing that we would prepare back then actually was great because it would make us all rethink about what we bring to the table. So I actually would invite everybody who's listening to me right now, whenever you get a time, if you want to do this right now, you want to do this later, but please spend some time figuring out what are the adjectives you call yourself with. How would you define yourself? And look at if you're able to break those. So here is my first question to all of you. Again, feel free to think about this. If I tell you that 5 years from now, you're going to be, or 10 years from now, you're going to be a big thought leader in any industry that you pick up, what do you think you're going to react? You're going to say, of course, yes, I would like to, but then I'm not sure, or are you kidding me? And it's important you think about this. It's important because that will tell you where you are. Again, going back to the adjectives that you call yourself with. So it's important. I remember when somebody asked me this question 5 years back, 6 years back, 2016. So 6 years back. And I remember I was like, are you kidding me? I can't even talk in front of 15 people. I can't do this. So it's important. It's important to know what are you thinking about right now. I'm going to quickly skip this one. My second question is, I sometimes have thoughts that I'm just not good enough or that I don't deserve to be successful. Do you have those thoughts? Or do you say, what's this about? Why would people think like that? I second guess myself, or I don't deserve the role or the position or the job or the organization you're sitting in or the or, the education that you're a part of. And it's important that you know this. What is your answer about this? So I do coaching with a lot of IITs and IIMs sitting in big organizations, and sometimes one of the things they come and tell me is that, Shruti, we've done IIT Delhi, and in fact, just yesterday I was coaching somebody. This gentleman is from IIT Delhi, there I am Ahmedabad, and he was like, and thereafter he's now working in one of very big global consulting firms, and his point was, Shruti, I always think that I could have done better. I could have done better in terms of my GPAs. I could have done better in terms of the um, elective I took. I could have done better in terms of the organization. I could have done better in terms of what I'm producing. And I was like, really? I mean, why that constant thought that you're not good enough? And I really want all of you to also think, is this something that comes to your mind? And it's important. It's important because, as I said, we define ourselves. So for me, what has been very critical and what has really helped me was that when I started having thoughts about, are you kidding me? I can never be a speaker, or I don't think I deserve to be in the position I am in. I got a great opportunity in 2015 to lead the Asia Pacific HR for an architect firm based out of the US. And I was with them for a year in 2014, sorry. And I actually thought I don't deserve this. I'm not sure why and how they decided that I am going to, that I'm deserving of the role, that I should be leading 26 offices spread across China, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, India, Middle East, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. What that led, and the reason I'm sharing this is important, what that led for me was that I actually goofed it up. I was with them for a year, but I goofed it up because I was always second guessing myself. I was second guessing my choices. I was second guessing my decisions. I was second guessing my conversations, the emails I would write, my interaction, interpersonal relationships, because I didn't believe that I have it in me. Because I thought that I will not be able to do justice because somebody possibly, on a lighter note, maybe just hired me because they didn't have any other option. I'm still in touch with that organization. They still like my LinkedIn post and they check on me every few days. Um, Great people to know. And the realization that my self-doubt affected that entire opportunity happened much later. Like everybody else, the first, I think, almost a year after I left the role, I was like, oh, it goofed up because of A and B, and I was forever externalizing what happened in that role. Before I realized that there was a learning out there, and the learning was that I was self-doubting. I did not believe that I have it in me. And it's interesting because, and I'm possibly talking to some of the best brains in the country today, so you would know that how our brain functions, right? Our brain actually tends to compartmentalize things. So the moment information comes in, there are about 11 million pieces of information that get into our brain on any particular day. And your brain actually compartmentalizes it and makes it easy for you to process information. So instead of making every piece of information available, what it does is it says, okay, this is what is relevant. Let me make it front facing, conscious. You need to remember it. This is what is irrelevant. Back of the mind, you don't need to think about it. And that's how biases are formed. Biases are formed because, or stereotypes are formed because they help us in decision making. That compartmentalizing helps us in ensuring that it just decision making becomes easy. So when I am told that you're an impatient person, that compartmentalizing makes it easy for the brain to say, you know what, Shruti, this piece of job to speak or to teach, you will not be able to do this. Don't even opt for it. This role, you will not be able to do it. It's a pretty huge role. You don't have the wherewithal for it. Keep it on the side. It makes decision making easy. It makes decision making easy for ourselves and also for others. So if I am trying to make friends in a party, what I'll do is I'll possibly go to somebody who looks nicer, who looks similar to someone I know. Have you ever thought that when you go to any gathering, any party, why are there certain kinds of people you reach out to and only certain kinds of people that you get good friends with? If you actually make a list of everybody that you are friends with, the people you trust, you will see that there are patterns there. Patterns in either in terms of their gender, patterns in terms of their age group, or maybe pattern in terms of their background or education or something. We tend to do that. So our brain actually helps us make those decisions faster. And there's nothing wrong in making, because that's how it is, right? The brain is made like that. The brain is supposed to help you make those decisions. The point is, am I letting my brain take advantage, or rather my brain rule me? That's maybe a better phrase to say. Or am I ruling the brain and saying, you know what, I know you have this job of helping me compartmentalize, but I need to be on top of it and take better decisions myself. And so that shortcut and that neural pathway that the brain has made and how to redefine it is something that we have in our capacity and capability. So when something goes wrong, when you're really going through an event in life which you don't want to go through, or when, as you go through the many years ahead in front of you now, when there are failures that come your way, when life beats you down, when you don't want to be going through incidents and events that you are going down, how do you deal with them? And I'm not saying be very positive. There is an entire thing about toxic positivity as well, that you need to be positive even when you're not feeling happy. I'm not asking you to do that. But I'm saying when life really beats you down, are you able to take a balanced approach and say, you know what, there is a brain which is asking me to behave in a certain way. How am I taking control of the brain? I'm going to, for a minute, stop sharing and tell you something very interesting. So, like everybody else, I've had my own share of failures. I've had situations outside these events. I've had situations where I would have wanted a particular job and I didn't get it, or I have lost out on opportunities, or I have lost out on opportunities to either to competition or to friends, or basically anything that didn't happen my way. And at that point in time, I remember there was this book, a poem, and I'm forgetting who has written it. But it goes, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the roads you're trudging seem all uphill, rest if you must, but don't you quit. And I remember my dad gave it to me when I was growing up, and I used to listen to that. And all that taught me was that, okay, you need to just be there, be at it, keep trying. Till I realized, maybe in my middle 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, that it's our ability to understand that things which aren't going our way are possibly because there is a lesson out there. Now, every time things have not happened, have I been bogged down? Absolutely. Has it affected me? Absolutely. Would I have liked it some other way? Oh, absolutely. But today, when I sit back, 21 years of my career, 43 years of my life, I think everything that happened for the best. I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't, because I have a very weak eyesight. And today, thereafter, whenever I go to hospitals and I look at people who are unwell, I realized that maybe I wouldn't have been able to deal with being a doctor. I wanted to be sitting in an HR head role in organizations, maybe earning a lot of money and being in positions of power. And for many years, I've felt that I'm maybe losing out till I realized that I was possibly not born to function within the confines of the rules that come with an organization. Being an entrepreneur, independent entrepreneur today, I have the ability to do things. So um, the reason I am saying all of this, whether it's my personal story or I'm talking about how the brain function or I'm talking about biases, is because, or about failures, is because I really want you to take a step back and redefine who we are. It's very easy to sit back and think about what didn't go wrong, but it's far more important that we are able to redefine what to do going forth. So, any event that happens, anything that goes wrong, I would honestly want you to sit and think, okay, what is the learning out of this? What could have been done differently out of this? Now, one of the things that has helped me, get over my thing when I was talking about being impatient, I had this wonderful mentor who said, Shruti, what's the one thing you're very scared of? I said, I don't think I can stand in front of people and speak. He said, okay, I'm going to make you stand in front of people and speak. He got me into one business school. He got me an opportunity to speak in front of 30 people. Then he got me an opportunity to speak in front of 100 people. And God bless his soul, we lost him to COVID in the last 2 years. And he got me those opportunities. And then I remember sitting with him one day and asking him, I said, I don't feel that fearful anymore of speaking in front of people. He said, because you didn't even try. You felt you can't do this because somebody told you that you can't do this, but you didn't even try. And because you didn't even try, even if it was like failure even before you attempted it. So my thing is, things will happen. You will have your limiting beliefs. You will have your own thought processes. You will have words that the world has told you. You will have words that you tell yourself. It's very important, more than anything else. What is it that you're telling yourself? I think Ariana Huffington said this. The way we treat ourselves is possibly the way not even our enemies will treat us, which is very true. We are so self-critical. So one of the things, I've asked you to do one thing, which is write down the adjectives that you believe you have. My second thing to all of you would be write down the patterns you're creating in life. The patterns in terms of the friends you have, the patterns in terms of people you trust, the patterns in terms of incidents that are happening. So something that helped me was I wrote down all the high points in my life. I wrote down all the low points in my life and I looked at the patterns that I was creating. And lo and behold, they were patterns. All the high points gave me some feeling of either accomplishment or freedom or independence. All the low points had something to do with how I was prioritizing things. And that gave me insight into who I was. And maybe some of this may not make sense to many of you today as students, maybe. But think about it 6 years, 10 years later, and think about what are the patterns you're making. It really will give you some insight into who you are. We believe the first step to success is actually understanding your own strengths. The first step to success is actually becoming more self-aware, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing the patterns you're making. So that's my second thing for all of you. So know your patterns. The third thing that, again, coming from my story itself, and yeah, we'll talk about all the biases, is, when you sit back and think, how do you view the world around you? So if I ask you to give, again, we're talking about adjectives here. So one is adjectives about myself. How do I view the world around me? What are the adjectives I'm using for the world around me? Are those adjectives positive? Are those adjectives negative? Our tendency when things don't go right is typically to be negative around everybody, use negative adjectives. So if that is something that's happening, that's also something to watch for. Um, as I said, third thing that I really want you to think about is and sorry, I'm asking you to do so much on a Tuesday evening, but it may be worthwhile to think, who are the, what is it, and how are you viewing the world around you? I think that's a better way of saying this. And I have something else to, yes. And the fourth thing, what is your vocabulary? So, very interesting story. So I go for my so I do Pilates. Not that I've been doing it all my life. I just started about 5 months back because sitting in front of these 10 by 10 boxes for the last 2 years, I started having some posture issues. So someone said, okay, start Pilates because it's good for the posture, it's good for um, the back. So for the first time 5 months back, I started doing this. And I remember every time my trainer would tell me, this is what you need to do, my first statement to him would, I can't do this. And he would be like, okay, just do two. If you can't do this, it's okay. And then I would do two. And then he said, okay, why don't you do two more? And I would do two more. And then eventually we ended up doing 20 reps and 30 repetitions and 50 repetitions and so on and so forth. And then I remember, and it's only been 5 months. Let me also make that clear. It's not that I've been doing, I think I've already said that. So I think after the first month, he sits me down, my trainer, and he says, have you realized every time I tell you something, you tell me you can't do this. But then thereafter, you actually do it. And you do it well and you do it long enough for it to make a difference. I said, yes. I mean, in 5 months, I am also noticing change. And he and I keep talking. And in fact, even after a month and a half, I had started noticing change in the posture and overall how I would feel about myself. He said, every time I also ask you to, maybe do, I go 3 days a week. So he said, there are days when I ask you to do 5 days a week and your standard response is, no, you don't have time. I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, have you realized your vocabulary is full of words that you can't do, you don't want to do, you shouldn't do? And I said, oh my God, I had not even realized it. And so he said, you must watch. And um, and after he pointed that out, I realized that the number of times I actually say can't or don't or no or cannot be done, to the extent when someone is trying to tell me something which I believe is not right, my response is, no, 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 it's not that, it's this. Or, no, 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 yes, you're right, this is how it is. And I realized that the number of times my vocabulary was using a negative word was huge. And it was amazing once he pointed it out to me. I've actually started making note of it. And it affects your brain. It affects how you view things. It affects how you perceive things. So that's the fourth thing I want you all to do. I want you to actually think about the number of times you're using no, don't, can't, shouldn't, cannot be, not possible in your vocabulary. Your standard typical responses to statement, no, no, absolutely, you're right. So, that it is so funny. I actually said it to someone the other day. So someone made a statement. I said, no, no, absolutely, you're right. And then I laughed because I was like, oh my God, I'm telling someone that you're right. And yet I'm saying, no, no, you're right. And I'm like, okay. So your brain listens. Your brain actually has the ability. One of the reasons why most of us are scared of reaching out to people, and that's something, by the way, I have noticed with very senior people with like 20, 25 years of experience. They would not make a comment on LinkedIn. They would send you a personal message. They would not speak up in meetings. They would do a one-on-one. And I asked them, I said, why don't you speak in meetings or why don't you put it up on LinkedIn? And the response that I get is that, we are scared of being judged. So, if you're scared of being judged, that's another statement where you're saying that you're biased against yourself. If you think someone is better than you, if you think that, you failed enough, let me tell you with experience today, having worked with CXOs, CEOs across the globe, people who are sitting in big positions, having interacted with people, as in maybe many of us would look up to them and say, oh my God, these are like people who've really um, broken the glass ceiling, or people who are like really successful. Today, when I sit with them and I hear them, and you realize that everybody out there is, as in, there's everyone has their own limitations. Everyone is looking for that perfection. So everyone is sitting at like a 90%, hoping to get 100% and not being able to achieve. So the moment you believe that you're not being well, or you're not doing your best, think about somebody out there who's possibly achieved everything you can, and then think about the fact that that person at that moment is also thinking, how can I do better? Trust me, we can all do better. No one is perfect. There is nothing like zero defect when it comes to human beings. So take it easy. I think cut yourself some slack. That's also important. Do I do that? No. Am I perfect? No. Do I follow everything that I'm telling you? No. But I try. But I try. I try to be better than who I was yesterday. I try to be better than who I was an hour back. I try to ensure that some of the things that I have learned the easy way or the hard way, maybe people can, by sharing these anecdotes, it can be easy. Having said that, I'm also aware we all learn through our experiences. Um, the next point that I really want to talk about is success blockers. Of the many things that block our success, two big ones are procrastination and distractions. Now, we procrastinate because either we're just lazy, or because we don't believe in something that we're doing. We think that it will not add value to us, or it will not make an impact to us. Or one of the other reasons why we procrastinate is because whatever we have been asked to do or we have to do is something that doesn't interest us. Now, the interesting thing about procrastination is it's a very, very weird cycle. If you like something, the chances that you'll do it are higher. The more you do something, the more chances that you'll be better at it. The moment you're better at it, you will start enjoying doing it more. And so the cycle continues. So if you enjoy, you will be perfect. The more perfect you are, the more you'll enjoy, and so on and so forth. The reverse of that is, if you don't enjoy something, you will not do it. If you won't do it, you will not know how to do it. If you won't know how to do it, the chances that you will not want to do it is again higher. The choice is in your hands, and this is what we were speaking early on in the session when I started, that it's in your hand to change the neural pathways that are there in your brain. So you may want to think about the choices you make. If you don't like doing something, and there was this very interesting I think series which was there, I'm forgetting what it was, on Netflix, which was about IIT students. And they said it, if you don't like to do something, force yourself to do it. And there's a 21-day rule. You will start in either you will know that I'm not made for this. And so at least it's out of the window. Or you will start enjoying it. And so you will know that, it was just a question of me not trying. So either ways, unless you try, which is what my mentor had said as well, unless you try, you won't know. So the point is, at least give it a shot for at least 21 days. You will know either ways whether you like it or you don't like it. The second thing is distractions. In today's world with social media and the phones we have in our hands, it's very easy to have everything on the phone. It's very easy to be distracted by too many things around us. The world is there, our families are there. So as in, even we had distractions when we were growing up, despite the social media not being there, despite mobile phones not being there. So obviously the distractions are far too many as of today. I think it's important for us to make time out in any particular day about how we want to deal with our day. And I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said, and this person was like, Shruti, I have my to-do list, but there are 18 hours of working in a day, so it becomes very difficult to catch up with everything. I said, Do you have a to-do list which you tick off? He said, no, I just have a to-do list. I tick it off at the end of the week. And I was like, okay, why don't you make a to-do list? And then whatever are the smaller items, something that can be done in a 5 minute or a 10 minute or a 30 minute, tick those off. Because if you have a to-do list which has 15 items and you're just looking at it, it's very daunting, it's very overwhelming. If you start ticking off the easy ones, and I'm sure out of a list of 15 things, there will be some things that can be done in 5 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes. Start ticking those off. As the number of items in your to-do list comes down, it becomes easier to deal with because it's less overwhelming and you're less likely to be tempted by distractions. I have done that and that's really worked for me. So that's an area which I can say I've been successful in, which is create to-do list, start ticking off the easy ones, and it just makes it easy because then I'm more motivated because I see out of those 15, 12 are done, only 3 are left. Then I know that, okay, it's easy to deal with. The number, usually the brain just gets pretty daunted by it, very overwhelmed by it. Um, I wanted to spend some time on something called as a reticular activating system in the brain, which basically says that whatever you focus on grows. And there's an example out here. So every time you will buy a new car, you're likely to see more cars of that brand on the road, or you'll end up looking at things that you're interested in. If you want to travel to, say, Germany, you will find everything about Germany in the newspapers, magazines, social media, everywhere. Some of it is obviously because the social media is using AI, but a lot of it is also because your brain starts looking for things that it wants to look for. So learn to leverage that. It's very important to leverage your brain's ability to focus on what you want it to focus. And hence, sorry, and hence one of the big things that I want to talk about in terms of unblocking your success, or in terms of being more successful and looking towards the future, building yourself for the future, being successful, is first and foremost, what is it that you want to do? Where do you want to go in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? So choose your goal, choose it wisely, and then focus on your RAS, or the reticular activating system, to know that, okay, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to focus on. Know the habits, know what you're telling yourself. What is the self-talk that you are doing to yourself? I think it's very important. As I said, the no's, the don'ts, the can'ts, the shouldn'ts. I can't do it. People are going to judge me. I don't have it in me. So all of those things about imposter syndrome. So what is it that you're telling yourself? Balance it out with your positives. I am not saying that don't focus on the negatives, but let those negatives be realistic. One needs to ensure that I'm aware of my positives and what I bring to the table, as well as what I don't bring to the table. So be very balanced in talking to yourself. Firm habits, as I said, patterns are important, which will really help you. Law of increasing returns, the more you do it, the more it'll help you, the more you'll get out of it, because things become easy. And efficiency will increase because you are going to be perfect at it. I'm now going to just open it up, and, for questions, if anyone has any. I can share more anecdotes, but yeah, I love to hear my voice, so I'm going to stop for a bit. If anyone has questions, please go for it.
Yes, guys, you can type your questions in the chat box. We can just take it from there. I personally have a question, ma'am. So, what do you think is the most significant barrier in women's leadership?
Significant barrier in women leadership, two things. One is women themselves, and the other is the society we're living in. And I'll use examples here. One is what I think I bring to the table, which is what I've been speaking about for the last 45 minutes. And the second is, I have people around me who, sometimes when you sit with people and you share, and they'll come back and say, oh, you know what, Shruti, you're being too emotional. Or, Shruti, I think you're overreacting. I think that understanding is missing. Organizations are a part of the society we live in. The society, it's not a separate entity that exists somewhere else. I think the society needs to be a little more cognizant of the fact that women are wired differently, and hence they possibly need to be spoken differently. The language, the vocabulary we hear is very different from what people hear. So significant roadblocks, I think, are one, women, and second, the people around them. And but yeah, we're doing a lot of work in that space. We are working continuously with women to help them understand what they can do differently, and we are working continuously with men to create more male allies, to create more people who can support the system. I personally have had wonderful men in my life, whether it was my father, my husband, my two beautiful boys who are very young, but they do everything in their capacity to support me. A lot of mentors, a lot of ex-colleagues. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So we have one question from the chat box, ma'am. So in your talk, you discussed about our aspiration of expecting we are doing better. How can we introspect our progress standards?
Wonderful, Kritika. Thank you so much for that question. One of the things we do when we coach in our coaching parlance is we help people make goals, and which is what I said, have a goal, and have a goal which is very clear, which what we call a SMART goal, a specific, measurable, realistic, time bound um, goal that you create. And then that goal should be, say, for example, I'm sitting on 8th of March. So create a goal up to 8th of March 2023 to begin with, maybe. This is where I'd like to be. And then break it down that, okay, in 3 months, I'd like to do this. In 6 months, I'd like to do this. Because if my goal is that I'm going to, say, travel to New Zealand, for example, at the end of a year, I need certain amount of finances, I need certain other things for me. So I need to have those goals that in 3 months, I should be able to have this amount of money. In 6 months, I need to have this amount of money, whether it's a career goal that I need to be, say, head of HR or head of some business or CEO or whatever in 5 years, 10 years, then have specific goals. That way you can really look at whether you're meeting those expectations of yourself or not. And if you're not, then it's worthwhile introspecting what is hindering that, whether it's the society, whether it's you yourself. As I said, one needs to be a little balanced about our own expectations from ourselves and the society. I see another question. Have you felt low any time in your career? How did you come out of it? Oh, lots of times. Lots of times. Have I made mistakes? Yes. Did things go wrong? Yes. I very early on in my career, I have made mistakes where which today I can laugh about, and today they don't mean anything, and maybe I can have you all have a good laugh as well. I was a part of a team where we would send out emails from Outlook, and there was a outbox there, and you could either send it from your own outbox or the group outbox. So I had access to either I could send it through Shruti Swaroop or the team's outbox. And in Outlook they have this option of putting in delivery receipts and read receipts. It's a very, very small example. But this is like when I was just 3 months into my career. So I sent out an email from the group inbox with my delivery receipt and the red receipt on to 12,000 people. And the entire team got 12,000 delivery receipts and 12,000 red receipts. So yeah, it's something I can laugh about today, something you can laugh about today. But at that point in time, did I feel low? Was I upset? Was I pulled up? Absolutely. Have I failed? Absolutely. I think one of the things I have done is um, my dad was a huge motivator for me in this. I think he kept telling me that it's okay as long as you're learning. Write down what went wrong, what is your learning. So after every incident, and I have this wonderful book which is not here, but I have a diary like this with me, wherein I write down all my feelings that this is the incident that happened, this is what I felt, and this is my learning from it, which has really helped me be more objective about events. Um, Sorry, Dikshita, I'm taking the privilege of reading those questions myself.
Yeah,
Um,
ma'am, sure.
where are you seeing global standards of women in the next 5 years? What will be the role of women in designing the future? A huge role. Um, I think not just women, I think in general, all of us are, I see increasingly playing a role in making the society, the globe, organizations better. And I see very senior people today understanding the need for bringing more women to the workforce, bringing more women to the forefront. I know so Dr. Alka Mittal, who is the MD, CMD for ONGC, she was pushed to pick up that role by a man, Dr. Balyan. So we know that there's a lot of support that people are getting, and um, there's lots that's happening. So do I see a future? Oh, absolutely. There's lots going to be happen. We see a lot of work happening in we see women leaders, whether it's in Australia, New Zealand. We see people picking up huge roles. Every second day there's news of some senior person having picked up the role of a CHRO or a CMD. So yeah, there's a lot of good things which are happening, and I think women bring in a certain amount of empathy to the system. So we will possibly see organizations being more empathetic and softer in terms of how they are treating employees rather than not just being outcome oriented. What's your suggestion in choosing your career options? Whatever you want to do. Do what you want to do. Don't do what your parents want you to do. Don't do what your teachers want you to do. Don't do what your relatives or friends or peer pressure. Do what you feel like doing, and maybe you can connect separately with me and we can have a discussion. But whatever is it that makes you happy. So by all means, um, do 5 or 6 different things if that makes a difference. And wherever is your happiness. I think it's very important to be happy in the long run rather than do something that the world wants you to do. It's your life and it's one life. Didn't mean it to be philosophical, but yeah, that's something I've learned at my age. What do you think is the most significant barrier to women's leadership? I've already answered that. What is your one golden suggestion for young women aspiring to achieve big? I have thought about this a lot of time, and I keep, a lot of people ask me this question, that what is it that you'd like to tell yourself or to, your 20 something? I think the one thing, and I've never got the right answer, because there's lots I'd like to tell, not just to women, but I think to myself as well in my 20s and to everybody else. I think what seems daunting today won't be daunting in the long run. So if you're struggling, if you are aspiring to do something, just create a goal, take one step at a time, and you'll reach there. Don't be too focused on output of every day. Don't be too focused on, whether this activity is going to get me something at the end of this month or end of this event, or, whether this session today at Triple I is going to get me something. Everything eventually adds up. I think so. What seems daunting today, that's okay. Somehow just, put your brain to what you're supposed to do and get through the day. Eventually today, when I look back on, whether it was losing out on job opportunities or losing out on, dealing with my father's passing away very early on in my life, or many other events that have happened, uh, at that point in time, it just feels like the world has come to a stop. But overall, it just adds up. So um, I think we just need to keep at it. And there's this wonderful book, right? The Fox, the Horse, and the Son or the Child. I think that's what the book is, and you'll get it. Otherwise, I can share it with Rashi separately. And that says that if you're not able to see where you're headed, at least just take the next step. So yeah, that's all I have to say to women aspiring. Just be at it, just keep at it, you'll get there. Um, what's your motivation? What's your suggestions for good reading in terms of books or movies? What's my motivation? I try to add value to one person every day. That's my motivation. Sounds very philosophical, sounds very out of the thing, but what drives me is that I want to ensure that I leave a legacy behind, that anybody who comes in contact with me feels that they have learned something, and that's my motivation. So it's about adding value more than anything else. What's your suggestions for good reading? anything is a good reading. Even fiction is good reading, whatever soothes your brain, whatever relaxes your brain. So, but yes, read and read a lot, whether you're reading academics, whether you're reading textbooks, whether you're reading fiction, whether you're reading personality development. Just read and read. There is nothing better than reading. My mentor made me read all my MBA books yet again after 18 years, because his point was, you have lost in touch. So you just read. What are the pros and cons of being a female entrepreneur? It's pretty lonely at the top. So you will have loneliness, you will second guess yourself, you will have doubts, you will not know who to trust. So those are the cons. The pros are, it gives a very different kick, um, because you're able to make a change to someone's life. I think being an entrepreneur, it's not about a female entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur is about knowing that you are responsible for the livelihood of people, and being responsible, taking accountability. With great, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. So it's a lot of responsibility. I think it just makes you feel um, more accountable. It makes you feel good, and you're leaving an impact. When did you consider yourself successful? I am not going to answer that, because everyone's definition of success is very different. What is my success may not be your success. My definition of success was when I bagged my first big deal of, an 8-digit figure, and I got my first employee on board. And so, and it's a always moving target. There have been, for me, the first time I got a 6-digit was first, big point. Then for me, success thereafter was being able to spend time with my children. Then it was to be a good wife. Then it was hiring my first employee. Then it was getting my first employee to complete a year. So it's success is an always moving target. So when did you consider your success? I don't know. I'm ambitious. I'm very ambitious. So maybe I don't know. What's the one thing would you change about your career if given the option? Uh, Nyashi, if you would have asked me this question 3 years back, I would have given you a long list. Given that you're asking me this question on 8th of March 2022, nothing. Nothing at all. Um, I think I am grateful for what has come my way. The chinks included, the failures included, the support included, the hardships included. Could it have been better? Absolutely. Life, as I said, nobody is perfect. Life is not perfect. It can always be perfect. But would I like to change anything? Not anymore. As I said, I would have given you a different answer 3, 4 years back. As of today, no. I'm grateful. And I hope I've answered those questions. I hope I have not been diplomatic. I didn't mean to be. Um, I am as vulnerable as any one of you. I am at as much as loss as any one of you, but I hope I was able to help.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. The audience really enjoyed the session, and thank you so much for answering all our questions. So it was a really wonderful session.
Thank you so much.
I
Look forward.
Now I request everybody to switch on their cameras for a group photo. I request everybody to switch on their cameras for a group. So I hope it's done. Here we have a small token of appreciation from our side, ma'am. Thank you so much for adding so much of value today here. It was a really great session indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So at last, I would like to thank all the participants for joining the session. Thank you so much and hope you enjoyed the session. Everybody is requested to leave the meeting.